Chili here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and I want to talk about remedies or astrological remedies. And this is a different approach to remedies than the practical approach of use particular crystal or even work with certain talisman. Well, those have their own merit. This is a particular approach that is tending to the topic of a certain planet, and this is me thinking with you, okay? So I began to identify that tending to raising awareness to what people call spiritual abuse or ritual abuse may be a remedy to both Saturn and Pluto, because Pluto is occult and Saturn is, oh, look at this 2222. Hmm. Wow. Wait a second. Impressive. Okay. 2222 Mercury sign. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius royal degree. Let's take a look at the news. World news. Okay. Nothing I see that relates to that. Um, we'll check for local news because it's a local chart. Well, I'm beginning to see that tending to the topic of ritual abuse, raising awareness, um, is like tending to Saturn and Pluto. Could also be 8th house. Now, it's not something that I would prescribe as an easy remedy, but this is exactly, particularly the Saturn ruled Pluto. Um, as when if you would look at my several consecutive episodes, you would see that every time I bring out an energy, there is a um, okay. massive attack on Kiev. United States wants to outrule narco-terrorism, which means when the Soviet Union did that, it fell. Which means it's coming from the oil companies. Okay. Mostly local news. And yeah, Beta Per Se was Minima today. And my screen was flickering right when she was Minima. It was interesting. So here is the thing. If you notice that when I talk about a certain energy, it's kind of like the energy begins to evolve. And one of the episodes where I talked about Pluto and Saturn, I went through the core of the issue of basically ritual abuse, and then I came out the other way and began to talk about point of interference and the possibility of shifting the timelines. And this very reading was attending to Saturn and Pluto in itself. And so by tending to that through the reading, there was a process, it's not an easy one, that was beginning to transmute the energy around the topic. And with Pluto, it goes through the authenticity of that, it goes through the authenticity of that process. Now, I'm getting the Dutroux case again. The Dutroux case was a process that was returning on the traumas that are done to people like Dutroux. And with Neptune and Saturn, there are attempts to trigger the nervous system to blur the lines of what is the real nervous system of a person and what is not. Neptune can be associated in the energy, not in the symbolism, with the headless right. Okay, where one is both themselves and other things. The headless right was abused in extortion cults as a personality cult. And this energy reading is about something that which identity was from the core, something happened and everybody wants the infant to portray it as though they have an innate direction or dream or liking of certain trauma patterns, where that was by design to try to make them think that this is so, or to make them experience that this is so. And that timeline is a programming timeline. They wanted to hack the nervous system of infants so that they would explore trauma timelines. And that was inauthentic. Okay, having an infant not exposed to being safe and secure is not an onset from which anybody can judge natural inclination. It goes to the topic of choice. This is why my last episode, or the one before the last, I said a choice between two timelines may become possible. Why I say may become possible is just because of what I just said. Because there are inclinations to put people in timelines where they would feel like their soul wants to explore a certain trajectory that it doesn't want to, how should I say that? Okay, there's something inauthentic about the timelines that they're trying to put certain people in. But that would not be experienced as inauthentic because of the programming to create timelines of trauma in their lives. And this is where certain people may feel that they have to surrender the choice, and or that the choice was made for them. Light just gave a reading about something like that. Certain people could feel that the choice was made for them. That can have to do with ritual abuse. Somebody has a way of either trying to explain things, or that their way of reflecting is not really compatible with the subject that they're trying to explain things to. That could be a Moon Saturn hard aspect. Okay, Moon is trying to reflect something or to understand something emotionally, and Saturn, when not well aspecting in the synastry, okay, between the people, then that Saturn can, how should I say that? They can, it can also be that they're programmed to try to purposefully repeat a certain trajectory that would be under the guise of reflecting something. And this is the thing about the water signs. There's a water trine, and somebody's trying to interpret something about Neptune in a way that is archaic. It's almost like somebody saying that the person that is depressed is just seeking attention. Okay, it's something as infantile as that. And this is because they also were not exposed to the timeline when they are well nourished. So, okay, so they, and this is why they find it difficult to um, it can be that the intention underneath is to bring something to the frequency of love, but they do it through hatred, or through or at least through something that is being perceived as hatred timeline. Now, and spiritual poverty. Now, Saturn Neptune in Pisces is the theme of spiritual poverty. And the spiritual poverty is at the core issue of ritual abuse, is trying to cause enlightenment through pain. Now, the Pluto Saturn thingy was going through that process where the core wound is trying to cause enlightenment through pain. This is where Saturn itself needs to evolve. Pluto Saturn is when Saturn itself needs to evolve. But also Pluto is evolving because Saturn reminds Pluto that that Pluto's process does end up in mass death every now and then. Okay. So it's both being aware of the tragedies of life and Pluto always wants to find light in every trash can. Okay, Pluto's like, okay, concentration camp. Let's see what is the light experience of and started like, well, it's mass death, slavery, torture, um, kind of some of the worst kind of deaths. Yes, Pluto. But like, well, it shows of the sacredness of the Saturn. Like, no, 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 it doesn't. It's just death, cruelty, cold, dead bodies, no even time for loss and grief. And this is where Pluto is having a really difficult time, because Pluto is the pile of shit that turns into a pile of gold. And Pluto is like, okay, Pluto is trying to find the gold in that pile of. And Saturn's like, well, in this one, there isn't any. And Neptune is the one that would feel ashamed for, I was seeing a short of soldiers that were beginning to sink, and they were saying, we could be hit by a missile at any moment, and that's our coping mechanism. So Neptune would be both the singing, the dissociation, the shame feeling of survivor's guilt as well. The shame for feeling relief then when someone dies, or worse things. That it was not intentional if somebody understood from that certain things they did were worse than death. I mean, it's true, very likely, but it was not meant to shame them. Um, Neptune Saturn is both the union of timelines and the splitting of the timelines. There was something that really disintegrated the ontological unit called human being in a very real way. '27. So 24 is Pisces, 25 is Aries, 26 is Taurus, 27 is Gemini. ruled by Mercury. Mercury 5 degrees. Saturn hours, I speak.